Welcome. This is day 3 of LIAMforum 2023. This afternoon, we have an important panel which addresses one of the key challenges we face in the mining industry, but also in terms of society supplying the critical minerals we need for the transformation into a cleaner economy. The issue is we will need a significantly larger amount of minerals to be produced in the next decade or so. The challenge we face is young people are not interested in the sector. And another issue is that over the last few years, the number of students engaged in geology and mining engineering and related specialties has also been declining. So in this panel, we have a group of professionals from the educational and field and from industry, and we will address the various subcomponents to the challenge and see if we can find a solution. But the first thing we will do, we will introduce the members of this panel, and I will start selecting them as I see them on my screen, starting with Brad. If he could introduce himself, please.
Yeah, thanks, Raziel. I'm Brad Ross. A little bit of my background. I actually started out, graduated from high school from a very small school in a very rural part of South Dakota on the Cheyenne River Indian Reservation, although I'm not a Native American. But and I was going to be a lawyer actually to start out with, but I kind of stumbled into mining and mining engineering and spent the next 35 years in the industry after I graduated from that, doing lots of interesting things. You know, you end up doing things that you'd never expected to do, the typical things, operations and technical jobs, but also a number of things such as controller and training manager in Africa and a variety of things. But what I was mostly doing was building teams and multidisciplinary teams to solve problems. And somewhere along the way, I actually ended up doing a master's and a PhD while working. And so I ended up going to my final job was at Bingham Canyon in Salt Lake City, Utah, where they brought me in to help manage the technical work for the largest landslide in history. And from there, I ended up writing a book about that. And since a lot of what I did was also to mentor people, I got the degree so that I could work at a university and start teaching. And so I did that starting in 2017 at the University of Arizona, where I taught mining engineering, but also created a center to Geotechnical Center of Excellence, where we did professional development training that became kind of worldwide and well known. And so this year I've actually stepped back from my training or my education duties and have created a new foundation to encourage industry to actually get more involved in industry or in education, mining education, perhaps build an institute focused on professional development that we could actually do more training throughout the world focused on professional development instead of just academic education. So that's what I'm working on now.
Thank you very much, Brad. Jodi, please.
Hi, I'm Jodi Banta. I'm the program manager for the new Interdisciplinary School of Mining and Mineral Resources at the University of Arizona. So I've had the pleasure of working with Dr. Ross. I am from Tucson, Arizona originally, and it actually had never occurred to me when I was a young person in college to work in mining, not once. And this is the Silicon Valley of mining. I thought I was going to be a lawyer, so I studied sociology in my undergrad because it didn't really matter what your undergrad was in before you went to law school. And in my final year of college, I had an internship with a prosecutor's office and found that I didn't want to go into law at all. So I was very grateful for that very valuable internship opportunity, and those are important, but I found myself graduating with the degree, a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology, no plan and really no career prospects. So I had to figure out, just keep my eyes and ears open for opportunities. And I discovered something called data warehousing. For anyone that doesn't know what that is, that's the predecessor to like big data, but it's just managing medium regular data. But it was really exploding at the time. So I taught myself to do that. And I got a job as a data warehouse consultant for a tech startup, which was a lot of fun to work for, but a very interesting time because it was around the internet bubble. And so we were all kind of overnight millionaires and then broke the next day. And I had to, from that implosion, move on to work for a multinational insurance company. And that was great because it allowed me to travel the world. And I actually had an opportunity to work in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Mumbai for an extended period. I really enjoyed that, but after that, I made the very intentional decision to move to natural resources. And I did that because I think this sector is so important. And with the growth in demand for minerals, I just see the opportunities exploding, and I think it's a fantastic place to be. And now, right now, my job is literally to reimagine mineral resource education to provide the workforce and innovation needed for the future. And that's what I do.
Thank you very much, Jodi. Anne, please.
Hi, I'm Ann Johnson. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Mining at Queen's University, and I'm cross-appointed to the Department of Geological Engineering and Geological Science, as well as our School of Policy Studies. My children say that I'm the poster child for lifelong learning. And that's because I am a recycled art history major who became a primary school teacher, who then did a degree in computing science, taught community college for a number of years, and then worked on a master's degree in curriculum and education with a focus on the development of the mindset of sustainability in engineering students. So that was my master's degree. And then I wandered into the mining department and said, do you think you could fund a PhD in mining engineering? I'm interested in the social aspects of mining. And they said, yeah, we could do that. And I was just lucky that that they had just received a grant to be able to fund more education in the area of social responsibility. After I did my PhD in mining, I also did a master's degree in policy studies. So I'm really interested in the mechanisms that we use to make responsible mining happen. But that's not all of it, right? And one of the focuses of this conference, one of the things we're going to be talking about in this session is why aren't more people excited by the prospect of working in mining where you can make such a difference in solving the world's big problems? So I'll stop there, and I'll look forward to hearing from more people on the panel and talking together. Thanks.
Thank you, Anne. Masaki, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Masaki Miyoshi. I'm the lead of campus talent acquisition at Teck Resources. We are Canada's largest diversified resource company producing copper, zinc, and steelmaking coal, so the key ingredients to a zero carbon future. So my role at this company is campus strategy, essentially attracting young people, not just to our company, but ensuring that we're attracting young people to the industry overall. But what's interesting is when I first started, when I was in university, I was always planning to be an entrepreneur. I guess I still am an entrepreneur. I had big ideas. It took me to Japan. I going to be very clear and honest and transparent here. I was anti-mining, and I knew nothing about the industry. And yet I was anti-mining. And then I came back I worked in academia. I worked at the University of British Columbia for over a decade. And I happened to work with the disciplines all specific to mining. And I was kind of disappointed when I got assigned that one, I got to be honest. So it was mining, geological, environmental, and materials engineering or mineral processing. And what I quickly learned to love it. It was the people. The people were amazing in the industry. I can see some heads nodding. It's a very large industry, but a very tight-knit industry, and everybody knows everybody, and you'll learn that once you join. Pretty much know most people on the panel from just random encounters. But basically my job at UBC was to what I call launch the careers of young people. and specifically, so I spent over decades sending students to various engineering companies, but a lot of them specifically mining. And I can go through my LinkedIn profile and see how amazing they're doing, how quickly they've moved up, how the rewarding careers they've had, and so in my mind, this topic is very close to my heart. I did a master's thesis on the HR challenges of mining industry, is specifically this particular area. And then I ended up working at Teck, where we sort of created this role. And so when I say I'm an entrepreneur, essentially this role was net new, and everything we do is net new. And my role is to build new programs that are designed to engage and attract young people. And in most cases, it's just awareness. It's just there's so many amazing opportunities for young people, and so my job is really easy. Just tell them about it.
Thank you, Masaki. Nadia, please, you're next.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel. I'm glad that everybody's come to the mining industry from very diverse backgrounds. I'm an environmental microbiologist. I was trained as a bench scientist. I was on my way and into academia. I did my undergrad and PhD in boreal ecology, and really didn't think I was going to work in mining. And now I'm CEO and president of MIRARCO Mining Innovation, which is an applied research corporation focused on developing new technologies for mining challenges. And I'm also the executive director of the Goodman School of Mines at Laurentian University, where we really try to represent the breadth of the mining cycle, not just mining engineering, not exploration alone, but looking at all of the other fields, which includes business, Indigenous engagement, environment, social license, safety. All of those are possible career paths. So we're really working hard to engage scientists like myself, technology developers, industry, all to engage that next generation of young students to see themselves and potential career paths in a really exciting and booming field. It's a really exciting time to be part of mining. And again, as a microbiologist, I never thought I'd be here, but now we live and breathe mining every day. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Nadia. And Doris, please.
Thank you. Hi. I get it. When you think of mining, dirty might come to mind. But let me introduce you to a whole new world within this industry, one that's ripe for transformation. I am a transformation leader, and my track record is all about empowering teams to achieve the extraordinary. As a child, I used to collect rocks, and I dreamed of being a mining engineer. But back then, it was considered bad luck for women to enter a mine. So I did chemical engineering and quickly earned a PhD in physical metallurgy and embarked on a journey that's taking me through corporate leadership and numerous transformations. I started by leading teams supplying to the automotive and aerospace industry. Then I moved up the ladder to cover the entire value chain, all the way up to the rocks, finally happy with the rocks. My journey expanded into energy, infrastructure, and more, culminating in the integration of all these disciplines with a method I developed I call designing sustainable prosperity, a practical structure approach to co-create a brighter future for mining regions, making them more resilient and sustainable. Join me on this journey of transformation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Al?
Hello, everyone. This is Al Shep. I'm connecting to this forum from Regina, Saskatchewan, is in Treaty 4. Director of a minerals innovation group called the IMII, and we have an interest in sponsoring from a technology perspective, but with respect to education and training, help bring more women people into the industry. I came to the industry not quite indirectly, expected. I had to go off to summer university, and in the summer I had a couple of years in a pot. By the time I finished my degree in environmental studies, I thought I may want to work. I went on to pursue a master's program in environmental studies so I could compete with engineers. So apologies to all my engineering friends out there. And that's led to a 30-year career in industry. And
Al,
happy to join everyone today.
you're breaking up. It was hard to hear the last bit you said.
Yeah.
Can you turn off your camera and repeat the last 20 seconds?
Yeah. Seem to be having local internet connectivity issues, so I'm trying to get it solved locally. So yeah, sure, I'll turn off my camera, see if that helps. Happy to join everyone today and help communicate, the opportunities that I think exist in the industry for young people, as given the growing importance of critical minerals around the world.
Thank you all. So what are we facing? We face a situation where there is an increased demand for new entrants into the industry. And there are three main components that increase in demand. Number one, there's a very significant number of people, baby boomers and so on, who are retiring in the next few years. And this is something that has been looming over the industry worldwide. I heard on a panel earlier today that 100,000 jobs will become vacant in the next few years, where we need to fill them with new entrants. And people really do not know where all these people will come from. This is just in Canada. So you have, number one, the age factor that people are retiring. The second factor is, finally, after many years, the mining industry is increasingly adopting new technologies, such as autonomous vehicles, a lot of data usage, and many advanced technologies, from mining to processing to other areas. This brings with it a demand for people who are familiar with those technologies, which the current most of the people in industry today are not up to date on that. So that brings on its own a form of demand. And the last factor is the mining sector has become increasingly more responsive to environmental and community issues. So there's another class of people that now are closely involved or part of mining companies, ranging from sociologists to environmentalists to water experts and so on. So the question is, facing that increased demand, what can industry and the educational institutions do about it? So we've broken up this panel into a number of small chapters to handle a complex challenge. So what we'll do next is we'll break up the discussion into these small conversations. So we're going to start with the elephant in the room, which is what most young people are simply not interested or deeply dislike the industry. And how are we going to handle that? And Al, can you hear me? Al, are you there?
I'm still here.
Okay.
But yeah, I have my camera off just to try and save bandwidth.
Right. If you could guide us through the retirement tsunami issue, how do you see that? What has been happening? And give us a little narrative of 2 or 3 minutes.
So a group in Canada called the Ministry Minerals Industry Human Resources Council, or often referred to as, has looked at on an ongoing basis sort of the needs of the mineral, and their most recent projection of the needs has a bit of a range to it, but they're projecting that there's a need for more than 100,000 people to join the minerals industry Canada in the next decade, and large retirements. And hopefully with my camera off, I'm not breaking up that often. This could pose a real challenge to the industry. A lot of those people will be leaving with many years of experience. Minerals industry goes more digital, adopts more digital technology, science and data analytics. All those digital systems have to be in their own right. So those are people who could have very valuable information for the digital transformation. People just for continued operations, exploration and development of mineral property. But on the opportunity side, therefore, creates great opportunity for young people, industry, and for our educational institutions to join with us in bring those young people into our industry. Yeah, so I guess you'd say we're in times with growing demand for critical minerals, but also the growing potential posing a bit of a risk to the industry.
Thank you all. So that's those 100,000 plus jobs, they're highly paying jobs. May I ask, Brad, do we face the same situation in the United States, a similar situation?
Yeah, we do. We keep on seeing that our number of schools have a hard time attracting people, but our need for additional people, but not only additional people, but different types of skill sets than ever before continues to grow. And so, yeah, I think we see that all over the world, even though there's a lot of places where some of the universities in the United States are actually combining with other departments and such, and in many ways getting smaller.
Okay, thank you. The next issue is relating to the falling enrollment in traditional schools. And Masaki has done a master's degree on that, and he's been practicing that in the field. Masaki, can you please address that? What's going on and why is it happening?
Yeah, definitely. So it's a combination of factors, but the first factor is young people just aren't attracted to mining. Kids in elementary school and high school don't actually learn much about mining for the vast majority of youth. But on the flip side, it's not like the government or media are helping the case in terms of attracting young people. I would suggest that the technology companies, Silicon Valley, has done a wonderful job of communicating to young people that working in software or computer technology is glamorous. There are lots of movies about that industry, the world, like that type of career path. What we are failing to do is communicate that these jobs all exist in mining. And so, for example, so I manage our co-op program, and one of the things that I know this very well. We hire 331 co-op students this year, and amongst them are AI co-op, UAV or unmanned aircraft pilots, geological. We have we have so many types of roles that people don't know about. So we have 40 data analysts, or data scientists. We have a director of climate change. We have a decarbonization team. We have a director of EDI director. Like we have every type of role possible that would align with the values of young people. Autonomous technology, but autonomous fleets, autonomous vehicles. So, and we're using the same technologies, and yet just people don't understand that that's happening, and that's happening in Canada. There's these amazing career paths. So that's one part of it's just young people not interested. But then the flip side is we have a global shortage of educators. Now, the mining industry actually pays quite lucratively. So if you happen to have experience in mining, well, good luck. Good news for you is there are lots of opportunities for you, and you will be, you will actually have a very, very comfortable salary. Now, not saying academia doesn't pay, it does, but it's very difficult for universities to compete with an industry like mining when it comes to the expertise and the knowledge that is required to educate these young people in a very technical space. And so one of the challenges, there's a limited number of people who have the qualifications to teach, and the mining industry is not going to let them go. And so we have this challenge where schools across the Canada and around globally are struggling to find qualified educators. And then we have universities who are not pro-mining. In many cases, there's divestments, and there's so the mining departments have a challenge where even their own university is not actually helping them attract students, which is leading to so currently in mining for the last 3 years, the average is there's a 44% vacancy rate in mining programs across the country, meaning 40% of the seats available for mining students are empty, which is and it's been declining for the last 9 years straight.
Thank you, Masaki. Yeah, first time I heard those figures, it is first of all puzzling and discouraging, but the similar trend is seen in Australia, in the UK, in the United States. Brad, you have a point to make? You're muted.
So you can go ahead, but one thing I was going to point out, Masaki made a great point about the tech industries, but we can learn from them. Microsoft has a certification program for people to learn their skills that they need, and then they actually partner with universities that they can transfer those professional development certifications and apply them to academic. And so that's one of the ways that they're getting people to get into their system. If you take a look at Microsoft, Microsoft, they also, what they do is they have a professional development program that just entry level, so that they can get more and more people to come into entry level positions. And that would then leads on to a further degree to get more and more detail. And so, we can learn from the tech industry to how can we attract more people in more unique ways.
Thank you. That's a good point. We'll come back to it later because it's important. The other small chapter we want to look at is Masaki referred to the fact that there's a 40% vacancy rate in the traditional mining engineering or geology programs. So the whole idea of what mining is has been siloed, and that is reflected in academia as well. And I would like to ask now Jodi and Anne to expand on that, and if Nadia wants to also comment, but Nadia has another item to cover a bit later, but it's part of the same equation. In Jodi's institution, you've created a new institution that is trying to be unsiloed, and Anne herself has been parachuted into a formally very sort of siloed structure as the odd person in, and she's trying to make a difference.
Yes, I am the odd duck, as they say. It's a happy place, though, and I have to say that I've never met so many people passionate about the environment, passionate about social justice as I have in mining. That's what makes it a very comfortable place to work. When I first began my degree, I'm not a mining engineer. I do have a background as computing science. That got me in. But my supervisor initially thought, oh, well, if she's not a mining engineer, maybe we'll give her an office in mining. She'll do her TAs in mining, but she'll do her PhD in cultural studies. So I started out in cultural studies. And my goodness, what a hostile place. They thought, well, she obviously means well, but she's so deluded because these companies are so evil. And so they sort of tolerated me. But I switched. I made the case that I needed to switch into mining, because there's no point in trying to address a problem by saying you have a problem. It was much more powerful to say we have a problem. And as soon as I was in mining, I found so many people who are open to the fact that we have problems, and we have problems because we're humans. Every single human artifact, and that's where the art history and archaeology come in. Every single human artifact and technology from the beginning of time has had flaws, has had risks, but that's how we advance. And what's important is that we understand the risks, we model the risks, we look for solutions, and we mitigate those risks in order to share the benefits of what we do with as broad a population as possible. And I think the exciting thing is in mining, that's happening. It's happening on the grand scale with a movement to have more reporting on the standards of ESG, which means environmental, social, and governance issues. Initially created for the investor population to be a sort of proxy for financial risk, it's become more powerful, and there are more different types of reporting schemes. So there's GRI, which is general. The Mining Association of Canada has a standard called TSM, which is very broad, but very specific to the kinds of impacts and risks that our industry have. So that's one thing. The other thing that we need to consider, I think, also is in mining, we walk a very fine tightrope between acknowledging the fact that we are training students ready to take up jobs right away in a particular industry, in all its many job functions, but also we're creating students who have diverse skills that are transferable and usable in many contexts. So the association of degrees in mining puts off parents. They think, oh, my child is going to be, living in the far north in a camp and I'll never see them. And they don't like that. But there are so many more jobs in mining. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Jodi, who has lots of ideas too.
Thank you very much, Anne. I appreciate that. Now, I mentioned, my job was literally to reimagine mineral resource education. And what we were given was a challenge to basically to take a look at the current state of global mining education. And we did that by talking to industry and to students, and then to reimagine what does the future state need to look like to actually provide the workforce and innovation that's needed. And we worked with faculty to design something. But what was clear out of that study was that people were, both students and industry, were frustrated with the traditional siloed approach. And also, second, you can't do the same thing you've always done and expect the result to be different. We really needed to rethink the whole approach. And so that's what led us down the approach of, we call it it's actually a transdisciplinary approach. And for anyone that's not familiar with the term, it means that you dissolve traditional disciplinary boundaries and you focus your education around solving a real world problem. And that sounds more attractive to students as well. So it's very different style, not very non-traditional. A couple of things that we noticed in looking at or talking to students was that a lot of students didn't feel like that they could study mining. They didn't know how, they didn't know how to get in, they didn't know they were welcome. They thought if they weren't an engineer, it wasn't open to them. There were certain ethnic backgrounds that didn't feel like mining education was inclusive for them or that they would have a place in mining. We knew from doing our own research that very few students know what mining is. And so without that knowledge, they were not going to become interested. We knew that too. Students don't become interested in things that they don't know about. So we had a lot of educating to do, but a very little bit of information went a long way. So a lot of, some things we wanted to do with our education was create very accessible intro level courses that would at least show students what minerals are, how do we get them, what's involved, what are the impacts, and the whole life cycle, but not excluding those important issues like social issues, policy making, land use decisions, all the kinds of things that often don't get covered. Students find that interesting, by the way. And we have success attracting students from humanities and social science and business and a lot of very non-traditional fields. I had an art student enroll. That kids, once they see it, yeah, there's Anne's background. Students are interested in sustainable development. We just didn't, but the word mining feels very narrow. I mentioned it never would have occurred to me to study mining as a student. It wouldn't have occurred to me to apply for a job in mining. When I applied for my role in the Lowell Institute for Mineral Resources at the university, which was the predecessor to this, I'm like, oh, natural resources, I'll apply for that. If I had been the Lowell Institute for Mining, I never would have applied just because I can't see myself there. There's like this difficulty students have making the connection between themselves and their interests and things they think happen in mining. And so we really have to open the door. We just really need to open up. What does mining look like? What jobs are there? And I can see in the United States, Canada, and Australia, a new focus on career pathways and clarifying those over 100 different career pathways. And that's something we focus on within the school because there's something for everyone in mining. But the other features did have to do with making sure that students felt like they were receiving more holistic education because they don't like that really narrow, I only see one aspect of something. They want to know the whole story. And so we do need to be able to do that. And then making sure that things like geoscientists are learning about social issues, mining engineers understand environmental impacts, and people making policy decisions understand what minerals are for and how we get them and the issues pertaining to. And also that we don't neglect soft skills like communications, working in teams, and appreciating perspectives. And we heard this straight from students. They they feel like they're not learning to appreciate the value that other disciplines bring. And they want to learn to work across boundaries. And so that's the kind of education students are looking for. And that's what we're seeking to provide. And please jump in. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and a thing that we have to, everyone here is talking about the change we need in broad perception of mining. I was in Germany at the beginning of the month, and I heard the phrase raw materials illiteracy as a problem in the public. And I thought, well, it's a little insulting to call people illiterate, but that's actually the problem, that the public doesn't understand where raw materials come from. And so it's a bigger problem than industry alone, academia alone can solve. It's going to take, I think, three parties: governments, industry, and academia working together to create a corrected, more accurate image of what it means to work in natural resources.
Yeah, and I appreciate that perspective. We actually do use the word mineral resource literacy. I'm from financial services, and financial literacy was a big term, and it wasn't considered insulting. It was considered something the public was concerned about, and I consider the same thing for mineral resource literacy. People need to know, should know, and do care, especially this Gen Z, where stuff comes from. They're getting more worried about it and the cost of acquiring materials. So I'm glad to see that, but it's not often taught in schools. And so that's something that needs to be addressed if you really want people to take an interest in the process of acquiring those materials.
Very, very interesting points. I love the reference, I think that Anne made to parents being horrified at the kids studying mining, that you'll be away, you'll be in the boonies, you'll never get married, whatnot. That's one point. The other point is the word mining triggering people. Rio Tinto in their latest ads doesn't use the word mining. They say we supply materials. We're in the business of supplying materials to transform the world. So because mining has, without additional knowledge, mining is a triggering word for a lot of people. It comes with all the negative, tailing down collapses, like the DRC, children in the mines, and so on. So partly is the way we describe the industry. This is not to say that we are going to be slick with our words and play word games. That's not the point. The point is to convey important information so people make proper decisions. The next point is, and I'm going to go back to Brad on this, there is an ossified curriculum. People have been teaching. I used to teach at some point in my life. It's easy for you to fall in the groove that you teach the same course every year for 20 years. And this is not in every profession, medicine and so on, you need to be up to date. But in some professions, because it's mathematics, it's engineering and so on, you feel that you're teaching the basics. So you're delivering what you're delivering. Brad, can you address that? How do we handle that? And you started a foundation as well to deal with that.
Yeah. Look at, we do get in the habit, it hasn't being a faculty member for a few years. It's easy to continue just using what you've done before. And one of the things that we can do more of is actually to integrate more industry professionals, because if you think about the content that we're teaching, it's actually needing to change because our industry is changing, the priorities are changing, we need different viewpoints, we need different topics, we need different skills. And so to incorporate that, we got to actually engage the people that actually have and implement those skills and abilities kind of on a day-to-day basis. And that's our industry professionals in a lot of cases. And so we got to think about it differently. And I think Jodi and the rest have brought up really good points about all the different areas that we need to look at, that we need to be transdisciplinary. And so, we also need to be global in this thought process. You actually brought up, this is what we're doing in Canada. What's it like in the United States? Well, the point is that the educational needs are global. And we need to think about things in a global manner, and we need to solve a lot of these problems on a global manner. And so instead of thinking about any one country, what are the criteria for careers and such around the world? And the major companies do that. The Rio Tinto and others, they actually, they have the same policies. They move people around the world. And so they actually think about things on a global basis. And so one of the ways that we should probably be thinking about is, how do we build courses, really great courses that can be used by all institutions, instead of having each one trying to rebuild their own course and their own capability? Because frankly, we don't have the critical mass to do that. And so one of the ways to do that, I think, is what we've been doing with the Geotechnical Center of Excellence. And during COVID, we started building courses, professional development courses, and some of those we're converting or have converted into academic courses. But the way we do it is one course, which would be a 3-credit course. We may use anywhere from 12 to 40 top industry experts to build one course. And if you think about the way people learn now, our younger people, sitting and listening to one professor that doesn't actually have expertise in all the things that they need to know, versus getting the expertise, it's more like going on the internet and pulling down things from Google and other things and learning that way, that you're getting all these different perspectives and different ways of looking at it. Now, if we could build those courses and have an open platform where it doesn't matter who builds the course, it doesn't matter who the learner is or where they're at, whether academic or whether professional development, but you had an open platform to connect those two. And that's what Amazon did for the commercial world, or the retail world, right? Is they built a platform that connected them. Well, what if we in mining actually had an open platform that any provider of courses could connect to any learner, no matter where they're at in the world, and it doesn't matter whether they're working on their professional increase abilities, skill abilities, or trying to get their degree, that they're going to build their skills and capabilities, and then having a common certification. Because each place, each organization kind of has, well, this is what's required, but why don't we have the industry tell us what it is that it makes a professional in all these career paths? Because there are all these 120 different career paths. Well, who actually knows what those career paths are and what should be required? I think it's actually the industry. So we need to get the industry involved. We need to engage them in ways, in more fruitful ways than we probably have before, and not by organization, but on a global basis.
Thank you very much, Brad. And Masaki, you're next, and then afterwards comes Doris.
Yeah, Brad, you bring up some great points, and there's music to my ears. Like, from the industry perspective, it's the same thing as where there's such potential to enhance education by partnering between industry and academia, and removing the silos we talked about, where from the industry perspective, if we can have one great course at one school, why not have that same course at all schools? And there's talent everywhere, and so yeah. Now, the other thing is also thinking even more forward thinking, where there's additional ways we can partner, make the courses even more exciting than what's Amazon's producing. So, for example, we have, our company's been building a complete digital twin of our QB2 mine in Chile. It's a metaverse, and it is literally a high definition video game that is going to be a complete real time moving mine. The pit walls move back in real time based off of drone data. The equipment moving there will be moving in real time, and we can get 100 players into that game, and you can log in from anywhere from your laptop. And so the potential of a tool like this, where it can be on a giant screen in a class, or people can actually be in the game virtually, and the potential as a teaching tool are unlimited. But there are things like this that industry is building, where from my perspective, if we get that in the classroom, not only will that enhance teaching, but that will attract young people.
Yeah, Desert Saber's also doing the gamification and for safety and such. So that's really smart.
Yeah, and that's where it came from, with safety training.
Yeah, Doris, please.
Just wanted to add to the discussion, there's a big gap between university and industry. The kids who are coming out of university, we have to start all over again. So there is a huge gap first, but also the industry has to make itself relevant to the future. That's ever changing. So there is a need to get much closer collaboration with the industry and university, so that the courses can be more relevant to the immediate needs, and also for the students to get practical experience. So industry should be part of deciding the topics, the content, and together, create this future generation ready for work and to transform on it, to make it relevant for the future.
Thank you. Masaki, you want to speak again?
I just wanted to add, though, one of our challenges, though, and this may be in the US as well, is that we also need to get the government involved. We need to get, in particular in Canada, Engineers Canada involved. There's a large number of core requirements that engineering students need to take that limits the ability to add more content, because there's only so many hours in a day or in a week. There's only so much you could add to the curriculum. And so as industry evolves, industry needs evolve, sure, the curriculum needs to evolve, but if the requirements still there's the core requirements don't evolve with this demand, then that provides a very big hurdle or roadblock. And so, we've found that this has been a challenge.
Thank you, Masaki. Jodi, you raise your hand. But before you speak, Jodi, in the United States, they're passing a new law, I think, to finance the education of mining people.
Yes, so there's been a few bills proposed, and if I'm behind on what's been passed, I apologize, but there's been a renewed interest by the government in funding mining education, mining schools, and so on. In the United States, there's quite a bit of attention on this subject now. And I have to say, we also, to Masaki's point about this accreditation issue in the United States, the accreditation requirements are given by industry in our case. And so the industry has been very flexible. Like, if what you need is for us to revise them, let me know. Just let us know, because that's what they're willing to take a look at those to make sure the curriculum can keep pace with change. In addition to that, though, we are blessed where we are to have so much industry engagement, and it just makes the value of the education so much better. But we have operating mines right near us. And so it's easier for industry to just come over and engage with us on a regular basis, where some universities are far more separated, and that distance creates a real challenge for them. So I appreciate the challenges, but also the benefits of being able to have industry interface with students and faculty on a regular basis.
Thank you, Jodi. Brad, briefly, and then I'll go to Nadia.
So one thing we have to think about is we keep on talking about engineering. It's much more than engineering anymore. We got to think about accreditation for different career paths that include not only engineers, but geologists and hydrologists and business people and IT. Now, it's not just accreditation for engineers, it's for all different fields and career paths. And we have to look at that a lot differently.
Thank you very much, Brad. Nadia?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on the conversation and some of the key ideas of, breaking down the silos and engaging young learners. I think, we also have to point out the elephant in the room that none of us started in mining. None of us were attracted to mining, and maybe the next generation can learn from some of our mistakes, and maybe we can do better at, mapping those career paths for young students and engaging them. But I think the key thing that we found, like our Arizona colleagues, we're in Sudbury, Ontario. We're in a very large mining camp, and the mines are literally 5 minutes, 10 minutes from campus, as are over 330 mine service sector employers that build technology into all aspects of mining. So what we've seen in students maybe pursuing more traditional, fundamental academic careers in their first and second year, the real changing for them is the hands-on experience, going to see your mine, seeing the loaders for the first time, looking at a mineral processing plant, understanding environmental impacts and the sheer volume of material that is moved in a mine, and the impact that that has, and the long-term management of that in the environment, how that interacts with the communities that in many cases in old mining towns, communities live right around the mining area, but we can't build mines like that. And understanding sort of that historical perspective and how communities view mining and how that's changing, and how we can build a better, more sustainable mining way of building mines in communities, it are all, that opens the eyes for students. And so I agree with this idea of, how can we decentralize courses and core learning? But I think we also really have to engage with our industry partners and key mining locales around the world to bring students, like a Pied Piper. Let's bring them along and show them what is mining. It's not like the really hardened perception of people underground hammering rocks. Yes, it's a dirty industry. Yes, there's a lot of range of techniques that have stayed the same, but it is so amazing in the rapid change in technology adoption that There are now, remote vehicles that are operated with things like Xbox controllers that the next generation are completely adept in. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to change the way we work in universities and change the learning models, and really build in more of that experiential piece to help attract them.
Thank you. Before going to Masaki, let me add, I'm at Whittle Consulting and we have clients all over the world, but I'm thinking of a mine, underground mine in Northern Europe, where you put covers over your shoes. The floor is so clean. And when you go to the floor of the plant, you don't see anybody. So this dirty industry is no longer dirty. You have autonomous vehicles, you have remote operations, you have Quebrada Blanca as a remote operations center, right? So you minimize the number of people that are in front of the rocks or there. It's no longer a dirty industry. And in the next few years, there'll be no diesel underground because of occupational health reasons. So it's high tech. Masaki, please say your piece, then Doris will come in.
Yeah, I'm just going to go back to just to play devil's advocate here and go back on Brad's comment about sort of accreditation of different disciplines, including business. And so one of the things I think is what I think it's important to focus on what are our pain points, right? And I think one thing that universities across the board or governments can do a better job of being actually more transparent about where there's surplus. In terms of numbers. So one thing that universities I learned, actually doing my master's thesis, was the universities are very hesitant to provide data on career outcomes. And the idea of, it's really about, it's not about, job preparation or career training. It's about higher education and higher learning, which I totally get. But when it comes to engineers, it really is about getting people, it's the path to become an engineer. It's only through these engineering programs. And so sharing statistics on this would actually be quite helpful. But what nobody shares in Canada, at least, is that there are over 18,000 students studying mechanical engineering. Do we have capacity to absorb 18,000 engineering students? I would argue no. Do we have capacity? Whereas we have our mining sitting at 850 students and geological is at 650 something. So you look at the orders of magnitude in terms of the number of students choosing. So it's not about talent not being there. There are 11,000 plus civil engineering students in Canada. They're the closest ones to being able to pivot to mining or geological engineering. And it really comes down to, one, awareness, not even knowing these numbers because no one's sharing them these numbers. Two, it's their parents who either have no idea about these disciplines or are really driving them to either take mechanical engineering, civil engineering, or electrical. Is a real driver for a lot of the students because those are the ones they're most familiar with. Those ones their parents are pressuring them, and there's no one sharing the numbers. But then but those three disciplines make up nearly over 50% of all the engineering students in the entire country.
Thank you. And I included that information in my email earlier, and it's quite true. And I'll address that. We'll address that in a moment. What could be done with that? Doris, please.
Yeah, just would like to take a couple of minutes to come back to how to attract more people into the industry. I believe we have to start early and loving our industry. For example, my life experiences, I lived in an environment of geological wonder. So I grew up admiring rocks. Guess what? I was dying to be a mining engineer. And I did everything I could to get there through many other options. So I believe we have to transform our education system from bearing them with information, having them solve preset problems, into empowering them and creating the environment for them to actually do original work, even a 10-year-old. For example, to start, it's empowerment through immersive experiences. For example, we could start early on an immersive earth science adventure. Earth science and geoscience are ideal topics to dream, to be in. So let's say we start with an immersive experience in geoscience, and in these geological wonders, to ignite the ecogeological curiosity, and they can formulate their own questions. How the Earth was formed, how volcanoes form, how mountains form, all this, and then formulate original hypotheses based on those questions, their own. So do work like graduate school does at early ages. So to really love learning, to really love the connection to the Earth, to really love understanding our environment, our habitat. So then they formulate their own hypotheses and test those in practical environments, and of course analyze and share the discoveries. So doing it that way, we infuse the love of learning and the love of geology and the earth science. So we don't only spark the curiosity, but encourage them to get deeper, explore this whole amazing earth science. So I think we can turn around entirely to live at the emerging edge of curiosity and allow them to discover truly innovative things to save our planet.
Before going to Masaki, let me add the following.
Yeah, Doris. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say that Brad made mention about that the industry should be globalized. Very often when people ask you about mining, I tell them, look, think of mining as the airline industry. If you run an airline, which part of the airline would you neglect? Which component? Pilot training, maintenance, food aboard? The answer is none. A modern mining industry is exactly the same. It's a sophisticated industry, and you have to do your utmost to do the best in every aspect. So this takes us to the idea that we should globalize standards. With regard to Masaki's point about the number of civil engineers and mechanical engineers, and Masaki and I had a conversation that maybe we could add some courses. So you are a mechanical engineer, a civil engineer, but you get a qualification so you can be in mining. So you take an additional course. And this is a course that Brad could design, so people could take it online. The other point is, and this goes to Doris's point, we of course need to reach people earlier, but it doesn't mean that a separate organization would develop materials. The same organization that creates the materials to train people for the industry should prepare the materials to educate teachers, which is Masaki's idea, and to reach people earlier. Should be coherent, should be consistent, and carry a certain message. And I think that could have traction. So Masaki, you want to speak, and then it'll be Anne.
Yeah, so I'm totally aligned with what Doris is saying. I think we want to sort of support passionate people who love rocks and support that. But what happens if all the rocks are covered in concrete and there's buildings on the rocks and the kids don't have access to the rocks? So this is like, so as we move more and more larger urban centers, like, so for example, I was 4 years in Japan, and I can assure you the kids in Japan have a lot less chance to actually see the rocks than we do here, just because of their environment. And but this is an opportunity for industry and academia to collaborate, right? So for example, like we're interconnected when it comes to the talent pipeline. If there are no young people going to mining, then they don't produce no mining engineers, and mining companies suffer. Now, what we can do is work together to, so the idea came a while back, because I have 2 kids, and summer is a real pain, because I have to figure out what I'm going to do with my kids for 2 months. And I struggle for summer camps. But what if we have a summer camp, a geological mining summer camp, not run by a mining company, because heaven forbid, parents aren't going to stick their kids at a mining company running a summer camp. But if it's run by, a well-reputed, a great reputation university running summer camps, run by engineering students who are passionate about this, curriculum tied in with, the engineering curriculum, and funded in large part by industry. right? So there's numerous ways we can collaborate, but that's just one example of I guess building off of what Brad was talking about, just getting more industry collaboration.
Before proceeding to Anne, and then I'm not sure who came first, Nadia or Jodi, we'll figure it out. There is something called the mining games, right? They're organized. Well, your idea of a camp run by students is brilliant. I think that it'll be a lot of fun. There'll be a lot of students who would love doing that, and it'll resolve the issues of many parents on the summer. Be very productive. In one of the virtual booths, there is a program for indigenous kids that is run, and I'll put in the chat. I think it's Outland. It's a very successful program, and this is the sort of idea that we should pull and discuss together. And they've been doing this for 24 years now. And some of the indigenous young people that are in the mining industry came through that program because they were familiarized in that camp with mining, forestry, and so on. And also they grew as individuals by doing that. So I love the idea. So who is next, Anne or?
I think it's me.
Okay.
I just following up on Brad's, I think it was Brad's suggestion, or maybe it was, there was a conversation between Brad and Masaki about repurposing civil and mechanical engineers. Queen's already has a program called our CMT, or Certificate in Mining Technologies, an undergraduate program for either students who are currently studying civil, mechanical, different engineering disciplines, so they can take that while they're taking their primary discipline. It's also available to people who are working and who have a degree in another type of engineering. So it's a pathway into work in mining. So it is for engineers only, though. And then with respect to camp, well, Masaki, can I just suggest that you do not send your children to horseback riding camp, or you will be doomed. So I live on a small farm. My children went to horseback riding camp, and lo and behold, I ended up on a farm with lots of horses. But I did have some success, but in seriousness, we did get a lot of children coming to our camp, not just because of the horseback riding, but because I'm a certified teacher, and I offered remedial reading along with the riding camp, and that tie-in to concerns parents had about their children's performance in school. I mean, all of my reading activities worked around horses and ponies. It did the camp well. It did the children were really focused. It kept them from losing ground they'd made during the school year, and gravitated around the activity that was really exciting them. And I think working with qualified teachers to build a camp program around some of the things that animate the mining industry could be really valuable. But I think you'd need teachers as well as undergraduate students.
Thank you, Nadia, and then I think Jodi, right?
Yeah, so it's like Masaki, set us up nicely on the summer camp topic, in that the Goodman School of Mines and some of our post-secondary and industry partners here in Sudbury actually delved into how do we target and create summer camps for young kids. So we launched Electrifying the Future summer camps for children from grades 6 to 9 this summer. We had over 400 children participate. We engaged grade 11, 12, and undergraduate students as the camp counselors and program delivery. We covered everything from mineral exploration to mining to mineral processing, AI, coding, and all the way through to battery production in the automotive industry. We got some of our funding from the Ontario Vehicle Innovation Network. And I think, spanning everything from rocks to electric cars is a pretty broad spectrum. And kids, even the young ones, got to see what careers and jobs and opportunities and activities are like all the way through. So it was very successful. I think it was a big challenge. As to Anne's point, I think we needed more school teachers engaged in the curriculum because professors are a little out of habit in working with young kids. But the undergrad students and the high school students were really great at engaging those kids all the way through, you know, a lot of technical and science activities, but it was really fun. And we're looking to repeat that next year and hopefully broaden our net and have students coming from further than just Northern Ontario. So it's possible. And I think, you know, linking industry, innovation and students all the way through, we can really start opening the minds of a lot of young people into the possibilities.
I'm cognizant we have about 11 minutes late to go. Jodi, and then Doris.
Okay, I did just want to add that summer camps are very popular and we are able to offer a small one. It's just for engineering, unfortunately, but it is popular and it's something that our faculty do help with. And the students' favorite part, we get to take them out to a mining laboratory so they get to see a little bit about what that's like. Their favorite part were the drones. They love to play with the drones, but hands-on. And it really is effective for introducing students to the topic. So I would love to explore expanding that. I did just want to say that our primary and secondary school teachers, because they admittedly know very little about mining and minerals, have been very open to receiving pre-made materials and kits so that we can just give them to them or show up in their classroom and teach them. And to Anne's point, integrating something else in it, like math skills or reading skills, was very helpful and very much appreciated by teachers. But a lot of the teachers that we encounter, they're really just their passion is their students. They're there to make their students successful, and they love to introduce their students to new things. So there's usually, at least locally here, an interest in those kinds of materials.
I think Doris is next, and then Brad, or the other way around.
Yeah, I love the camp idea, but maybe that's an action we can take from this group. But I would like to, not the traditional way of teaching, but rather create the environment for the teachers and the students together to explore and discover. So to empower, to unleash their genius so they become unstoppable, are learning, are innovating instead of bearing them with all our old information and all structure. So the point will be to actually empower them. So there'll be memorable experience, be passionate about the rocks forevermore, and they will unleash all these geniuses to come into our industry, to transform the industry. So that I'll be hugely interested, and I have all the how to do it so we can work together in the group in order to make it, because there's so many camps. So rather than teaching the same way, let's just innovate and empower the teachers and the kids to be truly innovators.
Thank you, Doris. Brad, and then Al.
How about Al first? He hasn't had much chance.
You're muted, Al.
And say, hopefully my internet connection got fixed here. So yeah, I just want to let everyone know I'm happy to reach out to you. Is that, you know, my connection's still unstable. Turn off my video. Yeah, we're going to be creating working groups over the winter months, probably out here, to look at creating, I guess, building on this idea of a camp idea, summer camps that actually build and help bring kids from secondary school into post-secondary programs related to mining. But so we did a study of all of our membership, and yeah, there are lots of camps. They're all one-offs. We decided we need to find some way to actually have camps that build skill sets. We're thinking we can probably start from secondary into post-secondary, but ideally it should go from elementary into secondary into post-secondary, but start with what we can. Yeah, we think it's important to reach out to young people and give them some opportunity that really builds their interest, but earns them something. Spot in an academic program or an academic credit or something when they actually get to post-secondary mining.
Absolutely. I totally, what I would suggest is that we pool resources. Brad's built a platform on which to build courses. So you have not just the summer camp, but you have access to the same knowledge throughout the year, and you can build on a continuum. And then if we have a program where you would have a series of camps, that would be stellar. And we could imitate the Boy Scouts as well and issue badges or the equivalent. And if those could be converted into some sort of a credit when you start university, that because you already have some knowledge, we should turn our minds to that. I mentioned earlier we had a panel on artificial intelligence. We had a 15-year-old who started his first AI startup when he was 13. It's impressive, and I think kids can handle a lot of information. To Doris' point, once you release them from the constraints of traditional education, it'll be amazing because they will access the information. And this kid earlier on said he'd use the artificial intelligence tool to teach him how to code. He did not know how to code, but he had an idea what he wanted to do with it, and he did it. And the same with mining. And your idea, Masaki, using the virtual parallel of Quebrada Blanca. If we were to create a global game that is educational as well, and we had kids studying in our sector from all over the world, participating with that as a tool, that would be an extraordinary resource because it will be accessible from primary school all the way through college, and kids will be able to, with their instructors, go through various phases and various aspects. I think that is a very worthwhile idea. And for an existing operation, I don't think it'll be once you build a model, you just create one that's used for academic purposes, and it'll be globalized. And I think it is very much worth doing. What we have done in earlier panels, we agreed to have a further meeting such as this, maybe in January, with an agenda, and to see whether we can take all these ideas to the next point. We have 5 minutes. Masaki, please go ahead.
I was just gonna make one quick comment about you talk about the game was it looks like 144 million people have played Minecraft. So it's a matter of us building one better than that.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Brad.
So one other thing to think about is our traditional system, educational system, actually has some barriers for people to go into mining engineering or mining education as a whole. One of them is cost, at least, especially here in the United States. It costs you 3.5 times as much after inflation as it did as when I went to school. And that impacts people at a lower income. It also impacts people in rural areas. And so the accessibility is the other part. And that impacts people that want to change jobs, change careers, to come in and go into traditional system can be very, very expensive. And so we need to think about how do we actually break down those barriers and other barriers that to come into mining education. There's 8 billion people on Earth. I can't believe we can't get enough people to go into mining if we actually broke down some of the barriers that keeps them from coming in right now.
We have 3 minutes to go. We can go a couple of minutes beyond that. So we have, so many hands. Nadia, Doris, Jodi, and then Masaki.
Just wanted to encourage the audience to join the geological movement, embrace your passion, and become a steward of the Earth's future.
Great. Jodi.
Yeah, I just wanted to add today that Gallup and Amazon released a study about the power of role models and their influence in career choice with young people, and especially this low income group who often doesn't have a role model. Since this is such a warm and engaging and inclusive industry, and we're all very family oriented and close knit, as I think Masaki hit it earlier, reach out to someone young, try to mentor someone young for all those industry folks watching today, or just, try to help a young person find their way.
Thank you. Masaki?
Yeah, I'm just going back to the whole minerals literacy. I think there's this one phrase that sort of summed it up for me, and that was minerals extraction literacy, and that was, if it's not grown, it's mined. And I think it sort of summarized, like at the time, it really opened my eyes. When I look out the window here, I'm in Montreal, and all I see is stuff that's been mined, right? And so, just building off of that, and educating young people, just creating awareness of where everything comes from. But it really comes, it boils down to something quite simple. And I think if we build off of that, we can create a lot more awareness.
Okay, thank you. Al, and then I want to handle quickly a couple of questions that came up. You're muted. You're still muted.
So for young people, just want to pass on the final message that we're looking for high-tech leaders. We're looking for environment, and social and governance leaders. And we're even looking on the global thought, those are geologically or, geopolitically adept, nationally, internationally. It's a really exciting industry, and we're looking for leaders in all sorts of areas. And yeah, we're encouraging people to think about joining us, because huge demand for minerals going nothing but up, because Saki knows, everything you handle has a good chance it's been mined. So
Absolutely right. There's a couple of questions. One question asks, which problem are we facing? White collar jobs in mining or blue collar jobs in mining? And I think the answer is we're facing both, the challenge for both. And the further answer is there is no longer much of a distinction. You'll be doing a combination of both. There's no such thing. Nobody works just in one or the other. It's all part of teamwork. And the other question which came up on the panel on earlier on is, with LinkedIn learning and artificial intelligence, are universities even relevant? Should we think on a completely new track of education into jobs? And I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think industries need to step in. Universities will not go away. In an earlier panel, the experience that a young person goes through in university, meeting colleagues, meeting thought leaders, spending times in a pub or in a sports field, making friends, that's irreplaceable. That is truly valuable. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you have to spend 4 years getting a sort of silo stuck in your brain. And then at the end of 4 years, you're branded, you're either a mining engineer or a geologist, or you're a narrow perception. We can do better. We can do all institutions and all components, government, industry, and education institutions should pull together to find ways of dealing with real issues. Brad made a very real point. There are income impediments, there are location impediments. It so happens that mines are in remote areas. So we should use that to our advantage, absolutely to our advantage, and think through and not be afraid of bringing ideas to the table and being proactive. And that's the whole point of LIAMforum, is to present to young kids the opportunities. And we've set up this year's LIAMforum some thought panels to discuss areas that need to be pushed forward. And let's not wait 10 years to implement it. So with that, I think we are sort of out of time. I'm going to get kicked out because the next panel is starting. Please send me comments, but I'll be more than happy to arrange a session like this, perhaps in January, end of January. And then let's exchange ideas so we can have more concrete solutions. But I think we're going to gain traction here. Thank you very much to the audience for listening, and to my very experienced and wonderful co-panelists here. Thank you.